iPhone swap.
I'm all for it.
Wait a minute. What I got to say on this?
Didn't you say that you're struggling with that Android?
No, I'm okay. Oh, no, I'm okay. You're going to get me a bigger laptop. That's fine.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay, we're
Sean,
live.
you could always go out to the end of the dock and put it next to mine.
Oh, we're live now. Uh-oh.
We are live on YouTube and recording.
You want me to take it away?
Yeah.
You got it, Steve. Let's do it.
All right. Thanks everyone for being here. I am seeing, looks like, I don't see Marcus here.
I do not see him on yet. I'll watch for him.
Okay. So do we need to excuse him with it being a workshop, or? We do. I see a head nod. So can I get a motion to excuse Marcus Tagent?
Move to excuse Marcus Tagent from the council workshop.
Second.
Favor?
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So we'll move on to discussions items. Thank you for being here, Russ. If you will take over and brief us on the mill use policy, and then we'll take input from the council members on that.
Great. Thank you, Council President Ewing. Wanted to chat a little bit tonight on the mill use policy and just reflect a little bit on how things have gone. So in the staff report, I put together some statistics from the mill use focusing on this last year, where the revenue varies a little bit, but it's somewhere around $45,000 and about $52,000 in expenditures, which would be expected since this facility both has private uses and public uses. So that seemed reasonable up to this point. What was good to see is that even in the second half of last year, we saw an increase in use, about 56 uses. So that's more than one use per week. So that's great to see. And then if you look at what's already scheduled for first quarter of next year, there's already a 4-time increase of that it's about 27 uses booked into early next year. So the use of the mill has been pretty successful throughout this period of time. We've obviously expanded our level of service. Council had authorized the marketing specialist to be the sole person to operate that facility, market, and we've done that. We've added a dedicated web page, and then this last year created additional marketing materials through that web page to make it easier for people to do virtual tours of the mill. And then this year, we'll be adding the Civic Rec program. It'll be a citywide program to do registration of all events. So not only the mill, but any park picnic structures or things like that, you'll also be able to reserve through that Civic Rec program. Staff's also received some feedback over the last year on some issues. Some of those we've tried to address, and some of those we'll talk about a little bit more tonight. So some of the things we have addressed, there have been some comments about the acoustics in there. The first step, we had added carpet in a couple of areas, and then some acoustic panels were just added to the walls. We're also working on pricing out what wireless microphones would be. And we've also received some feedback that the AV system, we might need to have a redundant or a simpler system, such as a small projector and a fold-up screen as a backup if there are issues with the tech in there. We've also received some feedback on the furniture, and we've added some additional tables and chairs to the upstairs to make it easier. We've recently purchased some chairs that will go around the banquet table upstairs that match the sort of industrial look of the bar stools, but they'll be a little bit smaller. So getting that going. And one of the things we had talked about with council at the budget session was needing dedicated people to help with the management of that facility, specifically cleanup of the facility. as well as setup. So we are going to be adding some custodial staff mid-year, and I understand that they'll be kind of working a split shift. So some of them will cover the weekend, some will be here through the workday, and they'll have early AM starts to help facilitate the use of that building and get us set up. Some of the other issues we've had are storage. As you all know, a lot of the equipment is stored in the front hallway. That's something we're working on. We want to move some of the cleaning equipment out of the storage closets so we can move some of the tables and chairs into those areas, and working on some solutions for some different racks. So it's been an evolving management of that facility, but I think we're adapting. And I think then I've heard generally some comments that council maybe wanted to talk about the pricing or talk about just generally, their perceptions of how the facility has gone. I did include in this the original pricing analysis that we had done a few years ago when we set the costs for the mill. And as you can see from a couple of years ago, we're at the low to mid range of those prices. And we recognized that at the beginning, understanding we'd never had this kind of endeavor. And we didn't offer all of the services, but it's still very competitive. And from the people in the community, outside of some nonprofits, we've not heard any objections on the price point of the facility. So with that, again, my intention was just to show you some of the successes of the mill, some of the feedback we've received, some of the things we've done to address those questions, and then hear any comments from council or their thoughts on how the operation of the mill has gone to date. And as we move through, I welcome any input, both from Interim Director Halverson and City Administrator Brazel if they have anything to add to the conversation. Council. Councilmember Frederick, then Councilmember Peter Shagan.
Thank you, Director Wright. I think overall, all the feedback that I've heard, and let me make sure I lower my hand. I think all the feedback that I've personally heard from people that have used the mill or been around the mill while it's in use has been particularly positive. So I think that's a credit to the staff, and I recognize that you're always going to be closer to the feedback where there's going to be areas for improvement, and that's completely appropriate. I think one of the things that staff should consider as you look forward in how you maximize the use of this facility, we really need to give some consideration to what are the types of events that we're targeting and vision and happening there at that location. And then what are the appropriate wraparound services to really make sure that that is a competitive venue with peer venues, especially as you look eventually at what I have to assume in the next year or so is going to be another evaluation of your rates to make sure that, one, you're covering your costs, but you're also covering your costs in a way that allows the mill to remain a competitive venue on the market.
Great, thank you for that feedback. And Councilmember Peter Shagan, I saw your hand up and then it went down. So did you have a comment?
Nope. I do have a comment, a couple of comments, and appreciate you putting this together, Russ. And I would echo Councilmember Frederick's comments. I think generally speaking, everything's been very positive. However, there has been a couple of small tweaks, I think, that are probably needed that I've heard from folks. And one is the 21-day window, I guess you might say, for the reservation. And I'm just wondering if that is something that's being considered to be done away with the new cleaning folks that are on. I'm assuming that's kind of what has driven this, is the cleaning issue. And hopefully with the added staff, we can do away with that 21-day situation or requirement for reservations. I don't know if you want to comment at this point, but that's probably been the number one angst I've heard.
Okay.
The second angst that I've heard is the inflexibility to have meetings like a breakfast meeting or an early morning meeting. And I don't know how that how the hours were established. Um, I would think that, I mean, we're kind of in the hospitality business now, and we are catering to folks that obviously the consuming public, and we need to cater to their hours, not having those customers cater to our hours. So I would hope that there's some flexibility in regards to that, and some changes that'll take place here in the next short term. The other thing I would ask is, you mentioned the marketing person is doing something, and I guess I would say ask for education purposes. What does that outreach entail at this point?
Okay, let me tackle your first couple of comments, and then I think Aaron probably has some feedback after that, and then I will tackle your second question. So when these rules were established, we had also looked at policies from some other venues to try to be, again, competitive with the market. So I think we followed a lot of what they've done. And the 21 days and the hours of operation have really revolved around that we only have one staff person who has to be available 7 days a week to do setup, to do takedown, take the reservations. So making sure that we can have scheduled people there. We can definitely adjust that, and bringing on the custodian crew is going to help if it's just a matter of having somebody there to unlock the doors. So I think, yeah, we can work to some solutions to expand on that. One of the other things that we had done this last year is originally we were going to bring forward another rec position as part of the budget. That sort of got substituted to go for the director's position. But at a point when we can bring on another rec person, that also will give us greater flexibility, not only for this facility, but as we bring Cedarwood online and continue to push out our Parks and Recreation program. So there is another placeholder in the future, that again helps address that. But your initial concerns, we can definitely reevaluate the 21-day period. And I know there's been a big request to do some breakfast hours. So I think, and I'll be speaking for Aaron here, amongst our staffs, that we can work to come up with some solutions to facilitate some earlier hours. Aaron?
Thanks, Russ. So I do think that adding the two janitors, the two public works janitors, will provide a higher level of service in these facilities, or in this facility in particular. I am concerned, though, that looking at Russ's summary of costs, that about $2,000, I'm scrolling up here now, but just over $2,000 for janitorial service contract, that cost will go up. We're going to add staff with equipment and benefits. So that number is going to go up to likely above $10,000 in reality, just for janitorial services of this one facility, in that $10,000 to $15,000 range likely. So that's going to change that profit loss calculation at the end. So that's something for the council to think about, is as we add services, as we open this facility up, there are going to be costs associated with that.
Thank you, Aaron. To your other question, what type of outreach do we do? The marketing specialist, she's in charge of updating the website. So she worked with different vendors throughout the year to bring you the marketing package that you see, the 360 view, and has worked with the Chamber of Commerce on advertising, attends a lot of meetings with potential clients, and is really at that site almost daily, showing the facility and networking on the property.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Troy, did you want to add something before I turn to Councilmember Daughtry and Dickinson?
Yeah, I just want to give them an update as far as the AV stuff. We do have everything set up for January 31 to provide some of the enhancements to that environment. And so that, just to give you a summary of what the enhancements are, One of the conditions that we had is the projector has to be lower because it's up in the heat column in the room. So that was causing an issue with that. So that's going to be lowered down. They're also going to be installing 3 articulating wall mounts for the TV, so they have a little bit better positioning of that. Plus, there's going to be a new switcher that will allow us to have more flexibility as far as how our outputs are being displayed on the different displays individually, as well as a couple of iPads that allow us to be able to reconfigure the rooms for the other areas like the stack and the Hartford room. So there's some of those tweaks. And so there, and then at the same time, we're going to reprogram how that system works. So there's going to be some mic work. So when you guys have some background music going, and if someone talks on a microphone, it's going to duck down the audio so that you can, so that it's not going to you're not going to be having both audio and the microphone playing. And then after that, it's going to take place, then the audio will kick back up. So there's going to be some tweaks that are going to take place on that. As far as your quotes for the wireless mics, we've got 2 different proposals back, and the lowest proposal is about 21,000, and that's for like 16 wireless mics, and then the other proposal is about $32,000 for wireless mics. So those are the 2 costs to add that capabilities to the environment. So that's just the update on that. So, but the January 31st is when we're going to start doing that work, and hopefully make some improvements as far as how the programming is working. We're going to try to simplify the control panels as well.
Thank you, Troy.
That's all that I had. Yeah.
Councilmember Daughtry.
One of the things that I'd like to remind everybody of is when we took on this process of bringing the mill in and changing where the location of the war memorial was, we made a promise to the Legion that the now mill community center would be available for them to be used as it was when they were in the regular community center. So no cost, and basically once a month, or actually twice a month, they had a regular scheduled meeting in there basically forever. We also promised them some storage for their flags and their podium and a couple of other small things that they have. They have some chair covers that they have for the missing in action and POW. So it doesn't take up very much space. It could be that we have just a, maybe an IKEA type closet that we could have for them, something like that. But we did make those promises back several years ago, and I, for one, believe we need to keep that promise. There's a couple of different ways that can be done. It doesn't have to actually include the person going in there and setting it all up for them. They can do that all themselves. I'm sure that we could give them a pass to get in when they need to, and we don't have to have anybody meet them there. And they're really good about taking everything back down again and leaving it in a pristine condition, because that's the way veterans are. So it needs to be taken up. It needs to be taken up pretty quickly. We've been pretty remiss in this, and with COVID, it's been okay because they haven't been meeting anyway. But I think that's all going to come to a head here pretty soon. They're going to need to get back in and starting. So I would like to see that fixed somehow.
Okay, I will point out that is one of the conversations we had a couple of years ago, setting the rules and just making the distinction that if we provide a service like this to one nonprofit, that we really set ourselves up for equity to have to provide that across the board. So there was a lot of council deliberation on that front, and then coming up with some policies for reduced fares, and definitely a lively conversation about how long the facility could be leased and repeat leases and things like that. So I think that was definitely debated in the spirit of looking at all nonprofits, including the Legion.
Well, I agree with that we did have those conversations. However, I don't think it's actually come up ever, even with the community center, that the other nonprofits were looking at getting into there for free like the Legion did. And, we made the promise to the Legion. We didn't make a promise to anybody else to use it the same way it was used back then. So I agree that, a nonprofit could probably come and say, hey, why can't we? But we could also say, well, this is a promise we made to somebody that was using it to begin with the same way, and we're sticking with our promise. It doesn't include anybody else on that particular part of the promise.
Okay. And then Councilmember Dickinson.
Yes, I have to echo what Councilmember Daughtry said on the veterans, absolutely. And also, I was surprised to see what this mill is being used for, having coming in just before the pandemic hit. And I do feel like we need to think about further use for people that maybe, I know we have this nonprofit thing going on. I'd love to see the Chamber of Commerce go in there for lunches. Maybe they've done that. I didn't know about it. But I know that they use the, did they? Okay, I see nods. Okay, good. Everything that we did in the old administrative building for the school district, that's what I'd like to see happening here. I know they had special events and so forth. So I want to see it get used, and it was kind of unfortunate for the sake of the mill that we got hit with COVID right after you all got up and running. So hopefully things will be brighter and we won't have to worry all the time about where's the money coming from? How are we going to pay for this? I think it's really critical that we see lots of more use of it. Hopefully we will.
Great. Councilmember Tagent.
Yeah, my company did a Christmas social there. It was great. Great venue. Everyone liked it. I think we started out by reducing the price of the mill just to get people to start using it and recognize that, if I remember right. Kim might know too, when we first set out to do that. Mm-hmm. But just I think letting the veterans is a great part of it. We made that commitment, and we don't have to necessarily carry that over to everybody. But what Mary Dickinson, Councilmember Mary Dickinson said is, whatever the school administration building was using it for, I'd like to see us up and get more out there and get more people in there using it. We put it out there for the community to have as a resource, and making it affordable is important for nonprofits and for other groups who are using it. I like the idea of what Councilmember Frederick said. Let's see what Mukilteo has, a building that they lease out and do stuff in. So we should be looking at what fair market value is for that. So,
okay. We can revisit the rates. Okay. Were there any other council comments tonight, or comments from the staff?
Yeah, Russ, this is Steve here. Sorry, my hand's not raising for some reason. So yeah, the making sure that we are able to be flexible and accommodating and easy to work with. I think looking for ways to say yes instead of looking for ways to say no is important. And I think we have some room to improve on our marketing piece because I just look at the the birthday party that was had recently, for the email that we received about kind of generated this conversation. And so everyone was from Lake Stevens, and most of the people there, the feedback I got, weren't aware that the facility even existed. And they were thrilled with the venue. The feedback I've heard from, I don't know that I've heard a negative piece of feedback about the venue itself. There might be some minor things, acoustics or something like that, but the venue itself overall gets really favorable reviews. And the feedback I'm getting from people is they're willing to pay market rate, but they also want market service. They want people that are going to accommodate them. And like the Salish Lodge, if someone called at 2 p.m. and said, we'd like to use your banquet room, it's available, they wouldn't say, I'm sorry, you don't have 21 days to do it. It would be open by 5 p.m. for them to do it. So that may not work for the city, but certainly, I think there's room for us to improve in that area. So I'd like us to continue to look for ways to do that. And maybe could be to expedite those two janitor positions. Really, we could be using the mill a lot more for a lot of variety of reasons, and I'd love to see that be fully utilized and enjoyed by our community.
Great. Councilman Tagent.
Is there a possibility just to hire an outside firm to handle this for us instead of having all this other stuff? Is it maybe hire someone who does social events and so forth and have them handle all the marketing and coordinate with the city? I'm just asking the question. I don't know if we can or can't, but maybe this just isn't in our wheelhouse as a city to do this, and we hire an outside firm to help us with it. I don't know, just a thought.
We looked at that, and I'll have to think back about that, but I know we looked at it and we weren't finding really good external solutions to run a facility like this, but we can definitely take a look and see what's out there and look at costs and if there are different models. So, yeah.
Yeah, Russ, I think, oh, sorry, Angie, you want to go ahead?
Sorry, I was trying to find my mute button and raise my hand and apologize for that. I do, thank you, Russ, for bringing that up. I do remember that we looked into having an outside company and sort of compared costs. And I think a lot of the costs at that point on our end were projected. But it seems like at this point, we've invested quite a bit of money and personnel into the website and the marketing and doing the work. I guess cost is one thing, but I would also hate to sort of pivot and take work away from folks that are doing a really good job. So just my 2 cents.
Great, thank you. And Councilmember Frederick.
Thanks, Russ. Really is a kind of a tangential comment to Councilmember Tagit. I think one of the things that maybe we need to consider, we have a marketing person to run a facility, to run a venue. Marketing people market. People that run facilities run facilities. But also when we start talking about market level service, while keeping the place clean is certainly demonstrates the need for increased custodial capability. There's also a need to be able to look at this site in terms of setup for various events. And that sort of staffing is kind of different than the staffing that we typically look at as a government entity, unless you're a government entity that has these sorts of facilities. There is an art and a skill to setting up a venue or operating a venue, in addition to being able to market a venue successfully. There's a reason that we go to those places where, the farms know how to set up the setting and create the aesthetics and the environment that's inviting for people to gather there. And I think one of the things that we'll have to look at with this venue is, how do we simply transition away from kind of where do we assign this body of work to having the right skill sets to do this work effectively for the mill to increase in its level of success?
Yeah, good point. Okay, Mayor, City Administrator, do you have any comments that you wanted to add this evening?
I appreciate the discussion. I'm super excited about where we're at. Councilmember Dickinson pointed out that we did open this right when COVID hit, and we've been successful thus far, but there's always room for improvement, and that's what we're talking about tonight. So I'm excited for what this year is going to bring.
Yeah, and I was going to say, since Civic Rec is just kind of getting up, I think that as we start using that more, we might be able to start understanding what is our lead time in between reservations for the setup and tear down. And as we start building some metrics on that, we might be able to get more efficient at that, like what Gene refers to as just we're just getting better at as we go. And then if it is like what you're referring to, as far as like getting some standardized service offerings, like if we're setting this up as a conference, that do we offer that as an additional service and set up a standard template that we do? Great. It's something that we can think about. But I think that we're at Civic Rec we're still starting to learn that process and learning how to go through the tear down and set up, and get those, processes worked out. So we're just going to get better.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your conversation. We'll look at the policy and come back and incorporate some of that feedback in the next month or so and reset a little bit and keep moving forward.
Thank you, Russ, for that, facilitating that conversation. If we can pivot, Kelly, do you want to take the lead on this council retreat, or would you like me to do that?
Sure, I can, or just make a quick little intro. With the new module I'm using in Civic Clerk, it put my name there as the one who submitted this agenda item, but I didn't necessarily have a presentation, but wanted to show you all, again, the tentative retreat agenda. Thought you might want to have some time to talk about agenda items, or if anybody had any additions or edits, and then also confirm that we'll be at the Edmonds Senior Center for the first day, and then at El Precio the second day. So Caitlin's done a great job securing that venue for us at the Edmonds Senior Center with a tour of their facility. And I just wanted a chance for all of you collectively to discuss any ideas, changes, edits, or anything you had in mind for the retreat. And I'll turn it over to you, Council President Ewing.
Thank you. Open to, I guess this kind of bleeds into the next one as far as the in-person. I understand that they have an option for those who, for whatever reason, are not going to be there in person to participate remotely. Is that correct, Kelly?
That is correct. And I plan to treat it just like I would do any other council meeting. We'll live stream it from the venue, both venues each day. And we'll have a Zoom link and people can still watch it via Zoom or YouTube, or come to the location, of course, too.
So we have to have proper eating etiquette, and since we're going to be live streaming our.
We may decide to take a little break and shut it down for a lunch, but that's certainly up to you guys.
Councilmember Dickinson.
You're muted, Mary.
Thank you. I'm muted. Yes. Okay. Kelly, I would love to see that agenda again. I did email you and say, could you please resend it to me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, of course.
Okay. So just send it to me again if you would. That's all. That's my only question.
Okay. And it should be part of your packet tonight under the staff report, but I'm happy to send it again.
Okay. Please do. Thank you.
Councilmember Jorstad.
Thank you, Steve. President Ewing, sorry. I am feeling a little bit nervous about parts of our retreat. So I'm just going to kind of throw out my thoughts and then we can go from there. I'm, pretty aware of, as we all are, I'm sure, what's happening in our county and our nation with COVID numbers and hospitalizations and just the spread that's happening. And so I feel a little bit nervous about taking ourselves into a senior center. I'm assuming it's an active senior center with seniors present. I wonder if I worry a little bit about the optics, honestly, and I worry about just what that means for our health and safety and the health and safety of the residents there. So that's my first concern. I also worry about eating and drinking and being at a restaurant unmasked with people that, that I don't know if they're vaccinated. I know that, that I work in other areas where vaccinations are required. And so I have a little bit of comfort in those settings, but this isn't one of those settings. And so I guess I just want to throw that out there. And I'm just as tired of COVID as everyone else. And I want us to get back to normalcy. And I'm just wondering if jumping into this 2-day in-person retreat is a little too soon. So that's my concerns.
Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts?
I guess let me follow that up. I want to make sure I understood, Kelly. There is an opportunity for individuals to participate who are watching the retreat, but there is not a virtual option for council members. Is that correct?
No, there would still be a virtual option, just like we do with our hybrid meetings. I don't see it to be working any differently. So if council members wanted to be virtual, you would just join the Zoom meeting and I would bring you in as a panelist like I normally would. And then hopefully you could see the room. Well, that's the hope with a webcam. You could see the room and participate virtually.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. I just wanted to note one more thing. When Caitlin went and viewed the space, it is closed off. The facilities have a different entrance than everybody else at the senior center. So, and they really didn't have a lot of concerns given how separate the facility is to the center itself and the separate entrance with COVID. So I just kind of wanted to mention that. We did talk with them about that. And there wasn't a lot of concern on their part, but
Okay, that's really helpful information. I appreciate knowing that.
Okay.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Yes, one of the reasons I think that I was looking forward to going to the Edmonds Senior Center is because it would show us how you can make a senior center and have a restaurant downstairs and all that. But I do have to concur with Councilmember Jorstad regarding, is this the time for this to be in person? And I may have to bail, and I hate to do it. I'm more an in-person kind of person. That's all there is to it. I don't like this virtual stuff, but I may have to do that virtually just because I am concerned as well.
Well, we'll respect people's wishes, whether they attend in person or virtually. We're happy to have you participate and weigh in. And so I'm glad, Kelly, thank you for all your work, Caitlin's work to make those options a reality. And that's, I know, one of the things that I asked the mayor and you to make sure that, that's an option for us to have. So you guys have done a great job with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Frederick.
Yes, President Ewing. I definitely support in-person meetings, and at the same time, I do echo some of the concerns about optics of going into a senior center. I feel really good hearing Kelly's comments about the physical layout of the facility, and I'm assuming that we would take all the standard precautions that we take in our own in-person meetings. So with that, while I acknowledge what it potentially looks and sounds like going into a senior center, I am looking forward to the meeting. So I will be there masked up and vaccinated and all that good stuff. Newly recovered myself. So
thank you, Councilmember Frederick.
See everybody next week.
Very good. Yeah, so we're looking forward to that. I do have one question, and it may have already been answered either by the mayor or Kelly about the presentation from the Urban 3. I was really impressed with the presentation. I know the man offered to be present for a council meeting, but I don't know where we ended up, if he was going to be available to provide additional input or be on call in the event that our discussion went sideways, or I'm not sure where we ended up with that.
I think Russ can address that. Yeah, thanks.
I have been in contact with Urban 3 this last week. I'm trying to get something set up. We're out of contract with them, so trying to work through the logistics of what that would look like. At a minimum, I will get specific feedback from them on what some of their comments meant from the council presentation, but I'm doing everything I can to at least have them available for some question and answer on one of the days. So I am working through that with them.
Excellent, thank you. Well, good. If there's any more without any other comments, Councilmember Tadgett, haven't heard you weigh in on anything. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
As far as the retreat and
Yes.
so forth, I'm going to show up. I understand it's a senior center, but looks like the precautions have been taken, And, you know, for what it's worth, I assume everyone will take appropriate actions in what they do when they show up. I'm for in-person meetings as much as we can when it comes to the retreat and so forth. I'm all for it. I think getting together in person and doing that is good. So if someone feels like they need to stream in, I'm all for them streaming in. For those who'd like to show up and be in person, I think that's good too.
Good.
President Ewing, can I allow Caitlin, with your permission, to just speak briefly because she toured the facility? She had a couple more things to add if she
Absolutely.
could. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me bring her in. Caitlin, if you want to unmute yourself.
And we'd like to see your smiling face as well, if you can.
Yeah, she's really done all the work on this. So go ahead.
Oh, hold on. Let me get to a place where I can easily be seen here. My kitchen. Let's see. Where is my camera? Well, that may not be as easy as.
Okay, that's okay. Go ahead and just.
Okay, I apologize for that. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here. And good evening to council members and to the mayor and Jean. I did tour the facility and I'm happy to address any of the concerns that were brought up, and I completely understand the vulnerable nature of a senior center. I will say that the activity director who took me on the tour, she did tell me that they're not running full programming right now because there are some of the seniors that are wanting to slowly come back. So I don't anticipate there being a ton of classes and a lot of people in there at the same time that we're there, because they're not offering, their full classes all happening at once. We do have a front meeting room that is right off of the parking lot. So there's an inner entrance through the double doors, but there's also an outer entrance from the street. So we could come in from the street versus inside of the building, but the bathrooms would be down a hall. And the dining area is in a large open area that's right near where we're meeting. And then the dining room itself is very, very large. It's almost like a grand ballroom. And it is super distanced. And the way that you get your food is you go up to a counter one at a time, you place your order, and then you go sit down. So, and I'm going to be working with the facilities director for the restaurant to make sure that however we're eating or getting our food or however it's happening is safe. So we have thought of those things, and I completely understand the concerns, and I'd love to answer any other questions that you have.
Caitlin and Kelly, thank you so much. Just that information is super helpful, and I just think helps me and everyone else make more informed decisions. Greatly appreciate it. And I appreciate the thought that's gone into helping make this be as safe as possible. So thanks so much.
Of course.
Thanks
Excellent.
so much.
Thank you.
So we're ready to move on to discussion item C, which is the trip to Washington, D.C. I guess there's a couple different options there. They have the National League of Cities option, and then they have the Smart Cities conference that is an option for us. And I know that the mayor and Jean have been participating in smart city options to make our city more intelligent. And so I wanted to weigh in to get the council to their thoughts on if they think that's in the best interest of our city and furthering the work that we're trying to do in the city. And if so, which one would meet those goals for us to move our city forward.
Let me jump in here a little bit and just talk. Historically, we've gone to the National League of Cities. We haven't gone for the last 2 years due to COVID. My experience, and so in coupling with the going to NLC, NLC is a city, National League of Cities. It has some classes, it has some get-togethers to be able to collaborate with other city council members, other mayors. So that's an opportunity. And then what we do as well while we're out there is we arrange visits with our federal congressional delegation. and we end up going and speaking with them as well. I hesitate going to NLC again. It's obviously up to the council's wishes, but it just doesn't seem like we get a lot out of the actual conference. As NLC seems to be more geared towards a lot larger cities, and it's such a big conference. My suggestion, and again, the council can do as it wishes, but you know, there's a Smart Cities Connect conference that's also in DC. It's in September. It has several classes that go along that you can attend depending upon what you are interested in, whether that's learning about IoT devices in the city, federal funding for different smart communities, cyber awareness within the cities. Those are all options that you can do, and as well as they have an expo floor, which NLC doesn't. An expo floor would allow you to see all the vendors and those folks that have all the latest and greatest technology for cities. So I think there would really be an opportunity for the council to see some of the latest technologies that are out there and get a different experience. And we can also couple that with meeting with our congressional delegation back in DC as well. Currently, so if you look on their website, Smart Cities Connect, you can see they don't have the agenda out yet for this year. It's in September. They do have dates, they just don't have an agenda out, but you can look at last year's agenda to make an assessment on the value that we would get from going to that conference.
So Mayor, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
So which of your staff, I know as a council, which of your staff do you envision joining us? I know historically there, multiple staff members have come to, since we work collaboratively with them. Do you see something like that as being beneficial to have us, working in collaboration with them in a conference like this?
Yeah, I think that obviously technology, I think Troy would be a great fit to come. The other thing that we'd want to assess is I like meeting with the congressional delegation, but I really like meeting with the people in the different departments that actually have the purse strings for grants, right? Those are the people that we really need to connect with, such as the transportation department, or I'd like to talk to some EPA folks about brownfield stuff. So then that could bring in other staff members. We'd really have to make a good assessment on the trip on who we want to talk to, who we want to contact, and maximize our visit out there. And instead of maybe 7 guys going, 7 council members and the mayor and a council member goes to a meeting, maybe it's 3. And so we can shift each other's focus and get maximum effect out of the trip. So I guess to answer your question, it would depend on what we wanted to accomplish there, would depend upon any staff members coming out.
Okay. So Mayor, I know you've already been to some conference and maybe some of your staff. So I would like to see, once the agenda comes out, I'd love to see what you've already learned, what your staff have already learned, and weigh that against what we stand to learn, and then decide to go from there. That seems like a good step. Councilmember Peter Shagan, see you with your hand up.
Yes, I would just support the mayor's comments in regards to that. The National League of Cities, in my experience of having attended that 3 years, and I think Marcus and Kim also, the classes were fine and so forth, but the whole idea was to have the legislators available to the folks that are participating and going back there. And in the 3 years that I attended, we've never met with Patty Murray. We've met with 2 or 3 different staff people that, and Councilmember Tangent and Daughtry can correct me on this, but probably weren't really interested in what we had to say. We've never met with Representative Larson. We have met with Representative Del Benny, and on, I believe, 2 occasions, Senator Cantwell. So it was kind of a 50-50 type thing. And, it's 3-4 days. It's not an easy trip to get back there. And so I think we can probably strategize a little more effectively than just, having a bunch of people go back for National League of Cities. So I wouldn't support that attendance based on my experience. So thank you.
Member Jorstad.
Thank you. That sort of addresses one of the questions I had. I was going to ask if it makes any sense to sort of divide and conquer and send some folks to the National League of Cities and others to the Smart Cities Conference. But, I don't, if it's not worthwhile, or if it's only 50-50 worthwhile, then maybe that doesn't make sense. You'd mentioned that the Smart Cities is in September. When is the National League of Cities Conference? Do you remember?
I remember that. I know the Smart City is the September 26th through the 29th.
Okay, I just wondered if they were both around the same time, or if the NLC is like next month, and then that's
It's
even
usually
more.
right around St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, okay, so springtime, yeah. So
Yeah, it's still cold, but yeah.
harder to sort of coordinate if it's right around the corner, for sure.
It is March 14th through the 16th.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Less than 2 months.
Yeah, that seems kind of tricky, especially for something that many of you have experienced as being not real beneficial. So I had another question, but I can't remember. So
We can come back to you if we need to. Councilmember
good.
Dickinson.
Yeah, I was thinking it was also in March. I remembered it being in March a couple of years ago. And so, yeah, I think one benefit would be it's further down the road, and time would be a good thing. I don't know. I'm looking forward to learn more about this Smart Cities Connect. Don't know much about it. I've always thought the National League of Cities was really cool, but if we don't get to meet the people that represent us in Washington, well, doggone it. That's definitely would be number one for me. That needs to happen. Hopefully, the Smart Cities Connect will bring us together with people who are from smaller towns. That'd be really cool. It's a much different kind of government here in a small town. We're still sort of small, right?
Absolutely. Thank you. Councilmember Tadgett.
Yeah, I'll just throw out, I mean, I would agree with what Councilmember Gary Petersagen said. We don't always get to meet with our senators and so forth. However, you have to think about Marysville is always there, full council. Everyone who has a big project is there during that time because most of the legislators are in session and most of them are there. And I think last time we went with our lobbyist from here, and I think he did a great job of setting meetings up for us and making good contacts. We went with Strategies 360 one time. I think it was okay, but I thought our Doug Levy did a great job last time. Just keep in mind, there's money that is going to be spent out there, and we've got to keep the trestle as one of the top priorities in our state. We're 1 or 2 or maybe number 3 now as things go along. But I think it's important for us to keep in front of our senators, even if it's their assistants who make the world go round down there for the most part. I love the idea of doing smart cities. I don't know why it's got to be one or the other for us. We haven't done any of this stuff for the last couple of years because of COVID. I just think it's smart for us to have people down there. Before we were having, I don't know one way or the other, but we would at least meet with Marysville while we're in Washington, D.C., talk about mutual projects. But staying in front of our senators is really, really important. And I think John Spencer did a great job of putting that out in front of them and having proposals and letting them know. And I remember the first year when the whole council went, and Kim, I think you were there. I think it was Joe Benny's like, okay, Lake Stevens, what's going on? Why you guys are all there? She actually took notice and spent time with us and heard us. And that was really great. She was phenomenal. And our message really got out there. But if we don't stay down there and keep our message in front of them, all the hard work we put in before kind of goes to waste, I would have to say. And I don't know if this National League of Cities is really that great of a conference for us. I think it is a lot of big cities and so forth. But at the same time, staying in front of them, I've always thought was really, really important from the first time we've gone down there. So whether we send a couple people, or half the council, some of the council, being in front of those legislatures, even if sometimes it's just in front of their assistants, and then having Doug Levy follow up with them and say, hey, we were down there. You've got to make sure that trestle. we need to be fighting for dollars for that as transportation packages and money's being thrown around down there. So I'm somewhat in favor of being down there. And I don't know why we couldn't attend Smart Cities as well and reemphasize our message down there again. But during Smart Cities, we don't know if it'll be in session down there or what's going on. So just a thought.
Excellent. So Marcus, can I just follow up? So would you be, based on your comments, would you be willing, one of those that would be willing to attend the National League of Cities if that's the direction we decide to go?
I will go, yes. I think it's important to stay in front of them. So I'd be willing to go down. So.
Councilmember Frederick.
Yes. Apologies. Yeah, I kind of agree wholeheartedly with the strategy that Councilmember Tadgeman put forth. One, even going down to meet our legislators every single year in Olympia, there's no guarantee that you're going to meet with all your legislators, and that's even at the state level. I think it's unrealistic that you expect to go to the other side of the country and meet with all of your legislators on the federal level. Sure, you want to meet with your senators and congressmen face to face, but meeting with the staff is also important, because the staff members set the agendas, they carry the notes, they communicate the message to their representatives. That's what their role is. And I also don't think that there needs to be a one or the other. It could certainly be both. It could certainly be divide or conquer, but there is certainly value in presenting a unified front. Numbers matter to some extent in conveying that this message is really important. It is something that we need to take forward. We need to get back to going to DC to make sure that we are caring for not just the issue of the trestle. The trestle is a large issue, and really there should be a much larger delegation of people regionally going to go about the trestle. But it's also about getting money for our projects, like our parks, like the work we want to do in the core of our city and revitalizing projects. It's our parks. All of those are the reasons why we need to be taking every opportunity we can to get in front of our federal legislators to have those conversations. So I would certainly encourage that we take every opportunity to go there and willing to make that commitment.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts. Councilmember Peter Shigan.
Yeah, just to follow up, and I agreed, appreciate Councilmember Frederick's and Tad's comments. I guess I would hope that we're making the efforts also when our congressional delegation is back in Western Washington, that we're making that opportunity to get in front of them as well, and not just, going back to DC. The other thing I would little bit change of thought here, reading Doug Levy's latest report. I mean, it is very important that we stay in touch with our national delegation, because the trestle seems to be pushing down the list. And so, yes, I agree. We need to have that unified front of, Snohomish, Marysville. At one time, I think, Mayor Gailey, you were meeting with the mayors of the Valley, trying to put that delegation together so we do have a united voice in regards to that. But the National League of Cities, that format is set up for municipalities and councils to go back and meet with their legislative delegation. And unfortunately, like I say, we sat in many rooms waiting for Senator Murray and such, and I get that the staff people carry the water for him and stuff, but it's challenging sometimes. That's all. Thanks.
Excellent. So thank you for sharing the input. Is there anyone else that wants to weigh in on National League of Cities or the Smart Cities? So Mayor, I guess another question to put you on the spot here again. So when we went to the Washington League of Cities, I appreciated being able to meet with Senator Hobbs and Senator Levick and Senator Meade. I really appreciate how well, and the part that stood out to me is their rapport with Doug Levy and how responsive they were to him. and the collaboration that they had there. I'm less familiar with how effective he is in working with our federal folks, but I imagine if his skill set is like that with the local ones, that he's probably a very similar level with those other folks. So I'd love to build on that. But I know, Mayor, you had been meeting with the other people. In fact, we've had a dinner with some folks from the different cities, and we were trying to meet with Sultan and Marysville and Snohomish to try and work collaboratively on keeping the trestle in front. And now that we've got a change in leadership in Snohomish with their mayor, I'd love to see that momentum continue. So I don't know what's going on our level to work with that. Mayor, can you comment on that at all?
Yeah, so Doug is obviously working. So the shift is this with Senator Hobbs. He was very project oriented, whereas the current with Senator Elias and some of the other new leadership on that transportation committee, they're more of a pot of money oriented versus specific projects. And so that's what we're seeing in this next legislative session, that things aren't necessarily earmarked. Instead, these pots of money are created and then projects out of them. So, but I know that Doug is working hard to keep the trestle in the forefront. I don't think that there's anybody in the state who does not still consider the trestle being the number 2 project behind the bridge over to Portland. And the read I read today said that that's still there and that it's still being worked by Senator Elias, but I don't think we're going to see it this year. I think you might see it next year. Some sort of a package that would include the trestle.
Okay.
And as far as Doug is concerned, Doug is super talented, has a lot of experience back in DC as well. So he's the kind of guy, if we needed him to set up appointments back east, we could do that. It wouldn't be a problem for him to do so. I know he has contacts back there to help him out to do that as well.
Okay, so it sounds like, thank you, Mayor, that we have multiple people saying, hey, let's do both, send some to the National League of Cities and some to the smart cities. So I'd like to see if the council, sounds like that's the direction that we'd like to move in based on the comments that I've heard. So we'll hear from Councilmember Tadgett, and then anyone want to share their thoughts that they have something different than the divide and conquer approach. Councilmember Tadgett.
I would just say the only thing is if we don't go and we're not down there in front of these people, Marysville, Kirkland, Marysville sends almost the whole council down. Bellevue's down there. Everyone's down at this conference, getting in front of whether there's legislatures or they're talking about their projects, talking about their needs of their city. And we have one of the second biggest need in the whole state. Marysville is down there asking for money for overpasses, for trains, and they get money. And that's because they're down there and in front of their legislators. The thing is, if we don't go down, we can't expect a different result than what we've got the whole time. So that's my only thing I would say. I agree with everything everyone's saying. We don't always get to meet with them, but I don't know why it has to be one or the other. I don't know why the council couldn't go to both. If somebody wants to go to both, why isn't the council going to both? Doug Levy, last time we were down there, did a phenomenal job. He does a great job here in the state. He does a great job when he was down in DC. He seemed like he knew quite a few people when he was down there even. So I just throwing that out there. I don't think it necessarily has to be one or the other. I think we have not gone and done a lot because of COVID. And I think Gary's point as well is we need to be having them come out and keep looking at the trestle. And we have a justification report. We have all those things that we need to keep in front of our legislators saying, hey, this is not going away before something catastrophic problem happens. So that's my take.
Thank you. Councilmember Jorstad.
Thank you. I don't need an answer tonight, but I would like to know what our budget is for council travel and conferences, and how does it pencil out if we all go to both conferences along with, it sounds like, additional staff. I just want to make sure that we're being responsible fiscally, and I'm, the more that I hear about NWC, NLC, I understand the importance of, being in front of folks. I think that financially, maybe it makes more sense for some to go to one and some to go to the other, but I would like to see what those numbers look like.
So
Excellent question.
Yeah, council's budget for the year is 20,000 for travel.
Okay, I don't have a good sense of what that means in terms of what is, what's the cost of sending 15 people or 10 people or 5 people? Yeah, thank you.
So Mayor, is the budget different? So if the council's budget, and that's different than if you sent some of your staff to go as well, that's a separate.
They have a different travel line item.
Excellent. And I just want to say, I appreciate the mayor and the staff making themselves available for our elected officials. I've heard from our electeds how they appreciate, the mayor and the staff taking the time to show them around the city and give them a bird's eye view. John Lubbock's one that comes to mind, showing on the Frontier Heights Park, and how receptive he was to that tour, and how that worked out very favorably for all parties. And so I think it's great that we continue to do that. We're doing what we can on our end. We're welcoming. We had an idea to bring all those people in before COVID. Remember, we're going to use the mill and have them all for a meal, and that didn't work out. So because of COVID, but that can certainly be on the docket. Councilmember Tadgett.
Do you only have rollover budget for travel for the last 2 years that we haven't used as well? I mean, we really haven't done anything. So we should have rollover budget for this year to get out there and do some stuff for our city. So we should have adequate amount of money of rollover from the last 2 years of not using it, and then this year as well. I'm not here just to try to spend money to do it, but I don't know why it's got to be one or the other for council, half the council. I don't know why we wouldn't all go and see both of them or do both of them or whatever. There's a couple National League of Cities to go to in different events and stuff. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you. Councilmember Daughtry.
In the past, the budget has included NLC and AWC's legislative days down in Olympia. We go to every year, or haven't in the last 2 years, but we usually go. And as Councilmember Tadgett said, there's NLC does either 2 or 3 different things a year. I've been to, and Councilmember Tadgett and I went to another NLC thing that was in Pittsburgh 3 years ago, I believe. Maybe it was 4 years ago. That wasn't in DC, it was in Pittsburgh, but it was an NLC thing, and it was very well attended by a lot of council members and mayors, and there's a lot of good information there. And at that particular NLC, they do have a vendors section. We talked to Waste Management down there for quite a while, had a good time, and asked them, where the heck our Waste Management rep was, and they didn't even know who she was. So but anyway, I agree with Councilmember Tadgett. We need to be in front of these people. I think we went in March, and then again in September. That's basically once every 6 months back in DC, and then get them back here a couple of times every year. I also think that we should go back to planning the dinner that the dinner that we were going to do, and get that taken care of. And we also need to get back involved with the AWC City Action Days that usually comes around once a year also. So we need to be involved in that. And just kind of echoing what Councilmember Tadgett says, that you do need to have your face in front of these people on their turf when you can, and even if it is just their staff, because then they see us being proactive and us deciding to, this is important for us to do in order to get this thing, and it just elevates it, maybe just slightly, but it elevates it. Senator Murray, the first time we went full force, she about had a fit, said, "What the heck is Lake Stevens doing here?" in front of everybody. All of Pierce County all of Snohomish County was in the room. And when she found out the entire council and mayor were there, it was just, she beelined right for John Spencer and said, "What," and everybody in the room said, "What's Lake Stevens doing here?" Everybody in the room said the trestle. That was pretty impressive. But it does get their attention that way. And I just think it's important that we go. And I might have a hard time going, but I'm going to certainly try. Thank you.
So it sounds like there is a consensus that we will try to attend both the National League of Cities and the smart cities. So I'm not sure the next steps if we reach out to Kelly and let her know our availability this week. If we can know that as soon as we know if we or one want to do that. I guess we have to wait for the smart cities and see what their agenda is, see what the National League of Cities, and also connect with Doug to see about him being able to connect with our representatives down there to see what that would look like before we could do that. But we definitely want to get on that sooner than later so we can even find a hotel in there, because I imagine those will be booked out if they're not so already. Are we okay with that?
Hey, if I may, just to give you all the council an update when it comes to smart cities. Really neat breakthrough on a connection that I actually was a guy introduced me, a citizen introduced himself to me during the Christmas tree. Oh, I cannot talk tonight. Holy cow. During the Christmas tree lighting. And that has developed into a relationship in which on February 1st, I'll be meeting with the president of technology for T-Mobile. They would like to look at Lake Stevens as a case study for implementation of T-Mobile's technology and maybe testing some things as well in our city. So not sure exactly what will come out of that meeting, but it's an interesting step forward to making our city more technology friendly and doing some more efficiencies even within our city government.
And that's great. Thank you so much, Mayor, for establishing that contact and nurturing that relationship. I know some other people in other cities have had Google that have had similar relationship with them in terms of internet access, and that's just been a huge blessing for the citizens to be able to have that. So great job. Let's pivot to in-person council meeting, item D. So what, I guess we've touched on some of the thoughts and concerns that people had with regard to COVID. How do we want to do that? I guess the challenge is I see that when we do kind of the mixed one with the council being half and half, that does create a workload issue for our city staff. Am I accurate in that assessment? I see a head nod from the mayor. So where do we want to go with that? Do you want to go in person? Do you want to wait for the Omicron variant to run its course? What do we want to do? Councilmember Daughtry.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, but isn't this really about the procedures, council procedures?
No, not necessarily. I did get a request from a council member to place this item on the agenda, given some recent advice from the Snohomish Health District about in-person meetings. So
okay,
that direction, that's why we're here tonight.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Councilmember Jorstad.
That was me. Thanks. Yeah. So at our last, I guess it was the executive committee, there was a conversation among the folks that were there about whether or not any councils right now are meeting in person. And if I remember right, there are a few, and Dr. Spitters spoke to that and then provided some guidance via email. And I don't remember if that, Kelly, did that go out to everyone, or did that just come to maybe just you and Jean and Mayor Gailey? So I think given that there's guidance to not meet in person, I think because of the Omicron surge right now, I wanted to kind of put that out there, make sure people knew that that was the recommendation and have a conversation about it.
Why don't we have our meetings at a restaurant, since that's still allowed? Just saying. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities for people to get together. We are doing appropriately as far as masking, things of that sort, at our council meetings. We have our plastic dividers. We have accommodations for folks to watch our meetings. we've made accommodations for folks that aren't comfortable to come to our meetings. So I guess I think there's a lot to be said for meeting in person. And at what point in time do we say is enough? So those are my feelings.
Councilmember George said, is your hand still up or did you raise that again? Thank you. Councilmember Tadgett.
I would just say, I think the idea of the hybrid meeting is working. Those who want to show up and be there in person, I think I'm comfortable with showing up in person with all the safety precautions we've taken, wearing the N95s or whatever mask everyone feels appropriate to wear. Angie, to your concern, I really agree with you. I think that if people want to make a choice to remote in via that, the county council, I asked with Councilmember Sam Lowe, he said, if a chairperson is there, everyone else is remoting in. That's how they're going to kind of work it moving forward. I think having the opportunity to do hybrid, if somebody wants to remote in and they're just not comfortable, so be it. I think that's their decision. I think it's good for them to make a decision about their health and what they want to do. But for those who would like to show up in person and be there and be able to, look each other, perhaps, or say hello and greet someone in person, I think that's great too. I think it's a personal preference. Everyone has their risk levels and so forth. And I don't know, we have unfamiliar times in front of us still. We don't know what variants coming out next and what's going to happen next. But I think going the hybrid is maybe the way to go. Those who feel comfortable showing up and doing that. I do think something that I'm looking for Gene Brazel on the screen, he mentioned, and I think the mayor mentioned, doing the workshops remote are a lot easier and less staff time and consumption. So I'm for keeping the workshops online and then the meetings where we vote in person and doing that. I think the hybrid is good for that. I like to show up. I like the camaraderie. I like looking at Kim and talking to him for some reason. So it is what it is.
12 years will do that for you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Frederick.
Yeah, so I just want to start with, and I don't want to sound crass or confrontational, but we're at a point where 30% of the hospital beds in this county are filled with COVID patients. I think it's inappropriate to take the subject lightly. I say that myself, being just a few days removed from deciding whether or not I was going to have to go to the hospital. I think that if we looked at the state requirements for Open Public Meetings Act, there simply is a requirement at this point to have a capability for a hybrid meeting. And it's simply a matter of following the rules. So I will leave it at that. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilmember Dickinson.
Yeah, before I say anything else, I want to give a shout out to Kelly Chellan, who I know it's a challenge to have a hybrid meeting, but I also know how it is for folks who want to be face to face. I get that. And I will never judge anybody who chooses to go to the meeting. But for me, I will just step back and say, okay, I can go virtually. I'll have to do it. And I got to tell you, I hate it, but I'm grateful we have this option. So I will be virtual at this point right now.
I think even with COVID not necessarily being, we have to look at the procedures. I remember when Councilmember Frederick was, back east and made himself available for a council meeting. And I was really impressed that, even 3-hour time change, that he made the effort to participate in our meetings. And so I do like the option regardless of COVID. At some point having that be a consideration, because even if someone's not physically able to be present for whatever reason, we all have families and work obligations that take us, different places. But the input's still valuable, whether it's remote or in person. And so, if we have the option now because of COVID, but moving forward, those options are going away. I mean, I heard today that Boris Johnson in the UK is March is their tentative date to abolish all COVID restrictions and get rid of the vaccine passport, is what I read today. So that may have changed since I read it. But anyway, I do like the idea of having the option. So it looks like, are we going to continue the consensus here are our workshops being remote, like we're doing tonight, and then our council meetings being hybrid. Is that what I'm hearing from our council? Here's head nods. Angie, I'm seeing. Okay, yeah, head nod there. Kim, did you have something else you'd like to share?
Oh yeah, it just occurred to me when you said that about Sean being in back east and participating. If we go back east to do an LC or anything else, I guess we could still have our council meetings. Even if we're all in DC, we could still have our council meetings, right?
We could. That option exists.
I wonder if that would actually meet the Open Public Meetings Act, though, where people cannot actually be there unless they fly to DC. If I'm talking about the attendees, our citizens. I wonder if that would still pass the smell test on that one, but heck, we could still have our meetings.
Ellie could just set up a hybrid meeting in DC. It would be
Yeah,
fine.
it just doesn't give them the option of, we're not paying for them to go to DC to be with us. So anyway,
Very
just
good.
a thought.
Okay. Well, thank you for weighing in on that. Kelly, are we clear on that as far as we're going to continue with the current plan? And thank you, Councilmember Jorstad, for passing on that information from Dr. Spitters in the health district for us to consider. Discussion item E. If we could have Director Halverson, if you want to share your presentation on the Highway 204, Highway 9 landscaping, the thoughts that you have on that.
Yes, of course. Thank you. At a previous meeting, it was requested that I bring back the landscaping plans, or Russ and I bring back the landscaping plans for the Highway 204 State Route 9 project. I met with WashDOT last week, went over these plans and some other issues, and I'm bringing those plans back to you now. And just to summarize, they have planned for 9,523 plants along the State Route 9. You have to excuse, I have a 6-month-old in the other room eating dinner if you hear some noise. So 9,523 plants. 2 of the roundabouts are on WashDOT right-of-way. 2 of the roundabouts are on city right-of-way. So the city will have a wonderful entrance at this intersection into our beautiful city that's well landscaped with plants from the beautification plan. They're all pretty small to begin with. They're 18 inches for the trees and 12 inches for the shrubs and some of the ground covers. So they have some room to grow. I know 9,500 sounds like a lot, but when you spread it out and they're small, it'll look a little sparse to begin with and fill in over 5 or 10 years. The survival rate on smaller plants is better. It's just going to look kind of sparse. The risk the concern I have is maintenance. This is a big landscaped area, essentially a park along these highways in terms of maintenance. And so they have these areas between the plants that have mulch that will tend to sprout weeds, as you might imagine. So it could look pretty poor if we are not very active in maintaining it at least twice a year and maybe 3 times a year. So there needs to be some more thought on how we're going to maintain these spaces. The other concern I have is WashDOT's responsible for 2 of these roundabouts and landscaping associated with roundabouts. So what's our expectation for WashDOT in terms of maintenance? Are they going to do a once-a-year check-in and mow these things down, or they're going to do a pre-emergent and hand weed these landscaped areas? So we're taking on a lot. We're taking on a lot of maintenance. We're taking on a lot of plants, but it's going to look beautiful if we do it the right way. Any questions?
Thank you. Councilmember Daughtry.
It occurs to me that we have a Adopt a Highway project program here in the state of Washington. And in particular, the Veterans Commission took on Adopt a Highway for Highway 204. That's 2 miles of, actually it's 4 miles of picking up litter. We did it one already. We're supposed to do it 4 times a year. We did one already. We got about 600 feet down one side, I think, in several hours with 8 or 9 of us there. It does take a lot of time, but I would think that there's several opportunities for others to be able to take this on as their projects, like an Adopt a Highway type project, or, you know, some of the other, like the Youth Advisory Council, for instance. They were online a few minutes ago, but they're not with us right now. I was going to put a bug in their ear about that. There's also the Veterans Commission, the Veterans Foundation, there's the Rotary, there's all kinds of other clubs out there that could take that on and help us out with that. And I don't think it would be all that bad for them to do that.
Thank you.
I'll add on to your comments. We do have the Adopt a Community program, and that's what it's designed for park maintenance, roadside maintenance. So any groups that you know might be interested, have them get in contact with Jill Meese, who also does our volunteer coordination.
So I did bring up that question as far as maintenance with our public works person at the time, and one of the concerns was that about safety, about having citizens working in areas close to, you know, traffic areas. And so I'm not sure how that's different than working along Highway 9 and picking up stuff versus, you know, in a roundabout, but that seemed to be a concern. So I don't know if that's something that Jill would probably be able to point them in the right direction and give them appropriate precautions. Councilmember Peter Shagan.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you bringing this forward. Just a couple of quick questions. You have on here budget impact to be determined. Who's paying for all this?
WashDOT is paying for the plantings as part of their project. I think the question on the maintenance is what Aaron was referring to with the budget to be determined. What does that maintenance cost?
Got it. I'm assuming, and you referenced these are pretty small plants, they're pretty fragile. So is WashDOT providing some sort of irrigation for these things to get them going for the next couple of years?
They're primarily drought tolerant plants, but that's a great question. And so I think the timing of the planting is key. If there is not temporary irrigation, if you can plant in fall, get them through the winter, they have a higher survival rate. But that's a great question. So let me follow up with them, council member.
Okay. And then also on page, you haven't noted here or on these designs, I think it's on page, what is it? Page 15, it indicates State Route 9, and I'm assuming 204, but page 17, that roundabout doesn't say anything as to which one that is. Is that the one at Davies and? And so, I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea where this stuff is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that page 17 is north of the State Route 9 roundabout. So it's right as you're coming in.
So the Lake Stevens Gateway sign that's going at SR 9 and 204, is that something the city is providing or designing, or do they just do a standard WashDOT concrete welcome to Lake Stevens?
No, they will be installing the base for the city as we have designed it and agreed upon. The sign itself will be installed by the city.
Okay, so we have some control over that. So, okay.
Is that correct, Wes? Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
But again, I appreciate you bringing this forward. I think it's very crucial for our community to do this right, and I'm glad that WashDOT's actually thinking about this stuff. I just hope that we do appropriately maintain this stuff, and this is the gateway to our community, make our community proud. It needs to be done right, so I appreciate this information. So thank you.
Member Dickinson.
I'm excited about this. every time I drive up 9 and go through Marysville, it rankles because they've got this big welcome to Marysville thing right there. And yet we don't have anything. So I'm looking forward to that. But the safety issue also came to my mind. The Kiwanis Club does roadside pickup on Grade Road. And sometimes that's very dangerous down there on Grade Road. So I do know about the danger that can be going on. So that's a factor, but it sounds like we're going to get it done, and hopefully we're going to be able to make it safe when it's taken care of. I do like the idea of volunteers working out there.
Yeah, if we, I'd love to see a maintenance schedule, because I know historically we haven't had one for parks and medians and things like that in the city. If there were an estimate on this project along with the other one, so we can kind of get an idea what, type of time requirement and that would necessitate going forward. And that would be important to decide, are we doing it twice a year? Are we doing it 3 times a year? Is it going to change as the things fill in? There's going to be more coverage and fewer weeds. I'm reticent to use a pre-emergent like Casseron. It's very functional, but it's also highly toxic. And so, there's a balance to be had, between using pre-emergents and, preen is less toxic, but it's also less effective. And so just striking that balance, is important, especially with that stuff going down into our rivers and into our lake. So thank you for this presentation. I'm glad that you added up I didn't see a place where all the plants were added up. So I appreciate that, because I do see the counts of 7 and 12 and 16 and 27 and kind of going down the schedule there. So any other thoughts? So Aaron, when can we expect you to get back to us on that schedule, anticipated maintenance schedule for that?
Well, I suppose I could brief you at the council retreat or a meeting around that time. That would be fine. First few weeks of February would be fine.
That'd be great. Okay.
Councilmember Ewing, can I ask one more question here? And that's, I've talked to the mayor a little bit about this, but I'm wondering about, this is obviously a huge project. What kind of signage notification is WashDOT going to do, or are we going to do, to alert the public that this summer their life is going to be absolutely miserable? And because we're going to get so many emails when this thing starts as to, when did this come about? So wondering what that dialogue is with WashDOT and coordination and public outreach.
Yeah, so really good questions. My primary concern during our meeting last week with WashDOT was their communications plan. What does it look like? Do they have one? And they assured me they do, and I requested it, and I requested it again over the weekend in an email, and I still haven't received it. So I'm anxious also about how this is going to be communicated to the public. I'm also really very interested in their schedule. Do they really think they can finish this entire project during the summer of this year, or at least substantially complete? Or is this a 2-summer project? And if it's a 2-summer project, what does it look like during the winter? So I'm also, I share your concerns. And I spoke with the mayor about this last week. Once I have more information, I will be back to brief you on it.
Thank you. So Mayor, if I understood when they did the presentation, that was the primary purpose in consolidating and making 1 year of hell to stave off 2 years of, this protracted, continuous closures. And so I think, but we do need to communicate that to the people. So I don't know what that looks like in terms of our responsibility versus WashDOT. We're going to get most of the heat because we're easier to access than WashDOT is. And so we want to make sure that we are clear and, on our Facebook or whatever the best medium is. And I appreciated their presentation that they gave us to the council that walked us through what those timelines were. I like to just look at something, look at dates and say, this is what's going to be closed and when, and these are the alternate routes. So something really simple, as simple as we can do to put on our website, our Facebook, whatever. And I don't think it's too early to start as soon as we are prepared to do that and just let people know, hey, this is coming.
Yeah, I think I'm with Aaron. Let's see what WASDOT comes back here, hopefully within the next week on what their communication plan. We'll take a look at it and see if we need to fill any gaps. I know Gary and I talked about some big signs in it. You know, not everyone looks at social media, and not everyone's from Lake Stevens, but they still need to know that it's going to be an interesting summer up there. And I think that getting it done in the year is ambitious, especially as we all know with all the issues of supply chain and finding workers. But we'll keep them to the fire as much as we can, right?
And I guess to your point, Mayor, there with the city of Snohomish and the city of Marysville, I don't know if it makes sense for us to, coordinate something with them as well, since, a lot of people come from Snohomish up north and a lot of people from Marysville come south. I don't know if that would be helpful.
Yeah, we can shoot that out to those cities for their Facebook pages as well. It's good.
Granite Falls. Don't forget Granite Falls.
Yeah.
Councilmember Dickinson.
I just hope that Soper Hill will be finished before we start down there at 9 and 204.
So I'll give you an update on the Soper Hill thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to try not to get upset. But we've been waiting on Comcast to move their wires for the last couple months. And it's atrocious to get those guys out. And I have assurance that it's going to be done really soon, but I'll be pinging the guy tomorrow as I pinged him today to make sure it's getting done, because that's unacceptable.
Thank you, Mayor, for following up on that. Councilmember Jorstad.
Thank you. I hear what Councilman Peter Sagan is saying in terms of us getting all kinds of calls and emails. I think it's going to be really important that we don't put ourselves in the position of being able to answer a lot of questions that we don't have answers to. This is not our project. This is WashDOT's project. And so I think we're doing a courtesy by getting information out for our own citizens, but that needs to be accompanied with a contact person from WashDOT to contact if there are questions or concerns. We can't answer the questions that people are going to ask. There needs to be someone there that is willing to put themselves in that place.
Excellent point. Thank you for sharing that. Director Wright.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to the mayor's comments really quickly about Soper Hill. We found out late last week and have had follow-up meetings that there are actually some fairly significant issues with the acceptance of the water line as constructed. So we're working with the PUD and the applicant. We had a meeting with them today to go over those issues. There are a couple of other site issues that are also going to impact the reopening of that. I know I've received individual questions from council members, so just to share with the whole group, the city is working directly with the owners of the project, the developers, the engineer, to come up with a feasible schedule and really try to direct their work to all of the public improvements first before moving forward. So anyway, that is more of a status update following up on the mayor.
Excellent, thank you. So I think with that, we've come to the end of our agenda. So thank you for your comments and for your input and your participation tonight. And look forward to seeing everyone next week. Have a good night.
Good night.
Everyone.